Have you ever, like, really stopped to wonder why money and sex just seem to have this huge grip on us?
Mhm.
Why do they take up so much headspace? It feels like they're almost, running the show sometimes.
It's a really fundamental question, isn't it? And it's something that you find explored pretty deeply in certain wisdom traditions, practical philosophies too. They really tackle this head on.
Exactly. So today, we're doing a deep dive into this idea, and it's a pretty bold one that something like 95%, maybe even, gosh, almost 100% of our energy gets funneled into thoughts about money and sex.
Right. A huge chunk.
We want to unpack why that is, look at the potential downsides, the dangers, and maybe most importantly, talk about how you might reclaim some of that mental freedom.
Yeah, the goal here is really to help you understand these forces
Right.
because they are powerful, but understanding them is the first step to maybe not being quite so controlled by them, more like becoming an observer.
Okay, so where do we start? These sources jump right in saying, look, it's not really about the money itself or the sex act itself.
Hmm.
It's about what they bring us. Can you elaborate on that a bit? Why is that distinction so important?
Absolutely. It's crucial. Let's take money. The text we looked at call it a kind of magic pen.
A magic pen, okay?
Yeah, meaning it's not just, coins and paper. It represents power, empowerment. It gives you access to things you want, sure. But it also hits these deeper emotional needs. Security, maybe. Freedom.
That makes sense. Like having some money means you can choose to, I don't know, take a course or just feel safe if there's a crisis like a storm,
Right.
which is totally different from someone who's just struggling day to day, maybe in a really tough situation, who can't even think about those things. So money buys peace of mind, options.
Options, exactly. A buffer. And sex is similar in a way. The intense focus isn't necessarily just the physical act, it's the sensations, right? The feelings it produces, freedom, ecstasy, things that feel, well, pretty unique and powerful compared to everyday life.
Yeah, very potent stuff.
Incredibly potent. There's this strong, energetic pull that just grabs our attention, grabs our mental focus.
Okay, but here's the twist, or the double-edged sword, as you put it. Having money, having sex, these aren't bad things in themselves.
Not at all. The sources are clear on that. Humans are, literally created through sex and sustained by resources, by money in our world. They're natural, fundamental.
So where does it go wrong?
The danger zone is when these things move from just being part of your life to being in your head all the time, dominating your thoughts. That's when the trouble really starts brewing.
And these sources argue that modern society has really cranked up the volume on this, right? Just great exaggeration.
Oh, massively, yeah. Things that were maybe once just natural parts of life are now amplified like crazy.
How so?
Well, just look around you. Advertising, constantly. Social media feeds full of it. It seeps into work, what we eat, even when we're trying to rest. It's just everywhere, always competing for that mental bandwidth.
Okay, so what happens then when money and sex thoughts really take over the mind?
The texts use some strong language here. They call it a corruption, something that can actually destroy your soul.
Wow. That's intense.
It is. It's described as a kind of slow death from the inside.
Oh, yeah.
It causes these, well, they call them mental diseases. Things like constant stress, pervasive anxiety,
Yeah.
this feeling of losing yourself.
Yeah. That constant background noise of worry or wanting.
Exactly.
And what about the emotions that tag along with this? Like the anger, the resentment, the fear, all that negativity. There's a really powerful analogy in the source material about poison.
Ah, yes. The poison analogy. It's stark, isn't it? Holding on to those negative emotions, anger, bitterness, fear. It's like drinking poison yourself and wishing others would die.
Oof. Yeah.
But life just doesn't work like that. If you drink the poison, well, you're the one who gets hurt, not anyone else.
Right.
And what's really fascinating is how this ancient idea lines up with modern science in a way. We know prolonged stress and negative emotional states actually cause chemical changes in the body. You can measure it.
So it's not just a metaphor.
Huh.
You are literally kind of poisoning yourself with chronic negativity.
In a very real biochemical sense, yes. It really hammers home the point.
Okay, to make this even clearer, there's a story in the teachings, right?
Yeah.
About a Zen master and his disciples.
Yes, a really illustrative story. It shows just how easily the mind can get hooked.
So the setup is this master and some orphan disciples living this really simple, dedicated life, meditation, cultivation, out in the secluded hermitage.
Very focused.
And one disciple's job is to go into the village each day to get food. He has to walk past a river.
Right.
One day he's coming back and he sees this kid hiding, watching something. So the disciple, curious, goes over and the kids watching girls bathing naked in the river.
Ah.
Now, the disciple knows this isn't right, especially for someone on his path, but curiosity wins. He ducks down, hides, and starts watching too.
And that one moment, that's the hook. It starts as curiosity, but it doesn't stay that way.
Exactly. It turns into a habit. Every day, he starts leaving earlier, rushing to the river, watching.
Yeah.
And it just takes over his mind. He can't focus on his duties, can't meditate properly.
His energy is completely diverted. He's just replaying those images, lost in thought, restless.
Yeah. And the master, being observant, notices this change. The disciple's just off. So one day, the master quietly follows him, sees the whole thing.
Oh boy, busted.
Totally. The disciple is mortified, terrified. He falls down, confesses everything, begs to be punished.
And the master.
Super calm.
Wow.
Just tells him he won't be going to the village anymore and gives him this piece of wisdom. If you surround yourself with good things, you will become good. If you choose bad things, you will become bad. Simple enough, right?
Seems straightforward. Remove the temptation, problem solved.
That's what you'd think. But this is where it gets really interesting and where the deeper teaching comes in. Taking him away from the river didn't fix it.
Oh, what happened?
His internal struggle got worse. He became withdrawn, moody, irritable, snapping at the others. He tried to meditate, but the thoughts, the dirty thoughts as the text calls them, were still there. And the more he tried not to think them.
The stronger they got.
Exactly. They intensified. He was miserable because he couldn't stop them no matter how hard he tried.
Okay. So this leads to the master's core teaching about the mind itself.
Precisely. The master takes him to the garden. And here comes the big analogy. The mind is like a super fertile garden. Thoughts are seeds.
Right.
You plant one seed, one thought. It doesn't just grow one plant. It multiplies into thousands of similar thoughts. Good or bad, doesn't matter. That's just what fertile ground does.
It just grows what's planted, prolifically.
And here's the absolute key insight from this teaching. The mind, apparently, has no subtract button, no delete key.
No subtraction or division, only addition and multiplication.
So think about that. If you try not to think a dirty thought, what seed are you actually planting?
You're planting the dirty thought seed. The mind doesn't really process the not. It just hears the core idea, dirty thought, and goes, okay, more of that, and starts multiplying it.
Wow, okay.
So the harder the disciple tried not to think about the girls, the more those thoughts just bloomed and overwhelmed him. It's the nature of the mind. It's incredibly fertile. Any seed you give it, it will grow like crazy.
So trying to suppress thoughts is basically like throwing fertilizer on them.
Pretty much, yeah. That's a perfect way to put it.
And the master then says, okay, understand this mechanism. Your body, your mind, they're just vehicles, like a car. They serve you. Understanding how they work, especially this multiplication thing in the mind, that's the first step.
Right, because if you can't force thoughts out, because forcing just multiplies them, what can you do?
Good question. What's the solution then?
The solution the master teaches is to create distance. Sufficient distance, the text says. Distance between your sense of self and the thoughts swirling around. And also distance between you and the body's feelings, the biochemical reaction.
Distance. How? Like stepping back mentally.
Exactly. The analogy used is watching a movie. You're just the observer. You see the thoughts, you feel the sensations, but you don't jump into the movie. You don't become the character. You just watch it play out.
So practically, how does one watch the movie? What's the technique?
It's actually very simple, though maybe not easy at first. You sit quietly, close your eyes, and just bring your attention to your body. What do you feel? Your heartbeat, your breath going in and out, maybe a tightness somewhere or warmth.
Okay. Just noticing sensations.
Just noticing. Focus gently, continuously on maybe your breath or just the overall sense of the body. Now, thoughts will come up. That's guaranteed.
Right. The mind garden keeps growing.
Exactly. So when a thought arises, maybe it's a worry, maybe it's a memory, maybe it's one of those dirty thoughts, you simply recognize it. Ah, there's a thought. You just acknowledge it, like seeing a cloud drift by.
Without judging it or pushing it away.
No judgment, no pushing, no grabbing onto it either. Just see it arise, acknowledge it, and then gently bring your focus back. Back to the breath, back to the body's sensations, over and over.
And what happens when you do that consistently?
The result over time is pretty profound. You start to actually witness thoughts and feelings just arising and passing away.
Yeah.
Constantly changing. They come, they go.
Like clouds, as you said.
Just like clouds. And because you're not identifying with them anymore, you're not saying, I am this angry thought or I am this craving, they start to lose their power over you. They just dissolve naturally without taking root and controlling your actions or your mood.
So you're not watering the seeds by fighting them or by indulging them. You're just letting them be.
You're letting them be while keeping your core attention anchored elsewhere in the present moment in your physical sensations. And it goes back to the garden again. What you sow, you reap. Sweet seeds, sweet fruit. Bitter seeds, bitter fruit. But the real game changer, the sources suggest, is realizing that how you are living, how you are experiencing this present moment through observation is actually more fundamental, more important than the constant stream of thoughts passing through. That awareness shifts everything.
Okay. So wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway for someone listening? What does all this mean in practice?
Well, the absolute core insight, I think, is that you cannot win the battle against unwanted thoughts by fighting them. You just can't.
That direct suppression method most of us try.
It's 100% ineffective. Because, as we saw, resistance just feeds them. Fighting a thought actually attaches you to that thought.
Right. You give it energy.
Exactly. So instead, the path to freedom is acceptance, in a way. Allow the thoughts to come, allow them to go, observe them without getting caught up, without judging.
Like watching that movie, knowing it's just a movie, it's not actually you.
Precisely. When you really get that they're not you, they're just mental events, temporary weather patterns in the mind.
Yeah.
They lose their sting, they can't really affect you in the same way, you just watch them pass by.
Okay. And the final thought, the mic drop moment from the master in these teachings.
Yes. It's quite something. He essentially says, look, humans really only experience two kinds of suffering. Physical pain and mental suffering. That's it. And if you can learn to create even a tiny gap, just a little bit of space between your sense of self and your mind's chatter, and between yourself and your body's sensation.
That observation space we talked about?
That very space, if you can create that gap, that, he says, is the end of suffering, or at least the end of mental suffering, which is arguably the vast majority of it for most people.
Wow. The end of suffering. That's huge.
It leads to a mind that's more positive, definitely more peaceful, and much more resilient. A mind that isn't constantly tossed around by every thought or feeling, that can handle life storms, and maybe even, as the text suggests, attract better fortune because it's operating from a place of clarity, not chaos.
Create the gap. Observe the movie. Don't water the weeds. A lot to think about there.
Definitely. Simple concepts, maybe, but profound implications if you really practice them.